Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I hope you are having an amazing day. So in this tutorial series, we are going to explore how to deploy a 3-tier application on Microsoft Azure step by step. By the end of this series, you will have a solid understanding of how this 3-tier application works and how it implemented it on Azure. So let's get started.
So, in this series, we'll cover everything that you need to know about building and deploying a 3-tier application. So, in this, we'll first discuss what is 3-tier application and its architecture. Then we'll next build a front-end application using ReactJS. Then we'll move to create and build backend application using Node.js. After that, we'll set up a database in Microsoft Azure SQL. And finally, we'll bring everything together and deploy a complete 3-tier application on Azure. So let's dive in and get started. Let's understand what is 3-tier architecture or 3-tier application is and what happens behind the scenes when we refer these terms. Imagine there is a scenario when user open a browser and search a e-commerce website. The browser displays a list of e-commerce websites. In that, when user clicks on say Flipkart and the website interface appears. The interface that user interact with layout, buttons or the any design that coming onto the user interface, let's assume that front end is designed in the React application or the React framework. Now let's say user logs into the application and checks the orders, the products and everything. And let's say for example user want the product information. When user click on that product information section, the information shows. The information that's displays on the UI, which is stored in the database, which is a third tier. But how does that information get fetched and displayed on the UI? This is where the backend come into the picture, in which the second tier of application or architecture comes. Here is what happens. Let's see what happens step by step. So when user clicks on the product, the front end sends a request to backend. Then the backend processes this request and it might validate and authenticate, and then the backend query to the database for the required information. The database retrieves the requested product details and send them back to the backend. And finally, backend sends this data to the front end, which displays on the user interface or the browser. This flow creates a distinct layer. So what happens? The first layer, second layer, and third layer. This all three layers are divided or called it as a front end layer is called as a presentational layer, which is shown on the user interface, which interacts. For example, we assume that is that application is in ReactJS. Then backend, which is called as logical layer or logic layer. The application logic the processes the request and handles the communication between front end and the database. So it is a mediator. And the database, called it as a data layer. The data is stored in this third tier where the data is stored and retrieved. For example, MySQL or any other databases. So each layer has its own specific role to ensuring the scalability and modularity. So this is all about the three-tier application. So once user log into the website, he searches the e-commerce list. For example, he click on the Flipkart, and that Flipkart in that Flipkart website, user need a product information. Then user clicks on that product information section. Then requests come from front end to fetch the data from the database, then this backend layer come into the picture, then he processes the request that comes from the front end, and then it validates, it authenticate and send it back to the database, then it retrieve the data and send it back to backend, and then it will come to the front end. So this happens at the background, which is called as three-tier application.
So now let's set up a front end and backend application. So I have already created a React app for the front end and the Node.js app for the backend. And both are set up in a repository in VS Code. In React app, we have set up a simple front end. That is, when user logs in, the UI will display this hello world on the screen. But if you are new to React, so I have covered the steps to create a React app and set up a build folder for the deployment and all the required procedures in my previous video. Be sure to check it out. Now let's go to the backend. On backend side, I have set up a server.js file. So this server.js file contains all the logics, request to fetch data and data from the database and all the required computation. If you see, we'll verify the basic functionality. The React app displays this hello world and Node.js app handles the request. Then we'll move to create a Azure SQL database and integrating it with backend API. Backend. And finally, we'll set up a backend API to fetch a data from the database and displays it on front end. So let's get started. So now set up a SQL database on Azure. So I have logged into this Azure portal, and if you see the list of Azure services which provides that, for example, SQL database, static app, web app, then app services, and so on. So let's create a SQL database. So let's click on this SQL database. It will show the SQL database window where you can see the list of previously created database. So now let's create a new one. So let's click on this create button. So it will open a new create SQL database window where we need to fill the required details. So in this project details, as I said, I'm using this free trials subscription. So the free trial subscription is automatically populated. And in Azure, to create any app service or any service from the Azure, you need this resource group, which I already covered in my previous video. So uh, this TechnoAarambh demo group is already created resource group, so it is automatically populated. But if you need, you can create using this create new button. Then I have to create this database name. So let's create a database name, that is DADB1. So it validates the name that we entered, and if everything's okay, then it will show this green tick. Otherwise it will show the error message. Then accordingly we need to update the database name. Then let's go to this Azure. I will keep the most of settings as default because we are using this free subscription, but you can update this as per the requirement. You can upgrade it if you require. And then let's click on this review and create button. So it will review all the required details that we entered, and all the if you see the basic information, that subscription and so many things. Then let's click on this create button. So it will create a database. So it will take some time to create. So now if you see in the right corner, the initializing deployment is started, then submitting the deployment. So it will take some time for the deployment, and so if you see, the deployment is in progress. So once the deployment is done, then we need to go to this resource, and then we'll see all the details which is we entered in while creating the SQL. Now if you see, this deployment is succeed, so let's go to the resource. So it will open the overview page of this database, and then you will see all the details. For example, the resource group that we entered, the status of that is online, and the location that we set up while creating the database, and so many things. So now we have to check or create a table. I have already created a table. So let's go to the query editor mode in my previous database creation, and to check the queries and the tables in the database, you need to click on this query editor. Then it will open this window, and then it will show the login. So let's enter the password and click on enter. And now we are in the query editor window. So now we will see the list of tables which is present in this table section, and you can accordingly you can check and or you can create a new table. So now the database or the tables list is mentioned in this. So Azure created some default tables, but I have created this demo table, and in which you can see, can do the query, select star demo and run this, hit on the run. So it will show the uh, presented entries in this table. So what we'll do, we'll fetch this demo data, demo table or this list on the React app. So for that, I have set up a repository on GitHub. So let's go to the GitHub repository. So this is TechnoAarambh is my organization, and in that I have created two repositories. One is for demo frontend and one is for demo backend. So what we'll do, we'll first set up a front end as a static web app, and then we'll create a web app service for the backend. And then we'll integrate front end, back end, and database end to end. And then we'll see how this three-tier architecture or three-tier application works. So let's go to the Azure portal one more time and go to the home. And then for React app, we'll create a static web app. So let's click on this static web app and just click on, again we have to follow the same procedure. So let's click on this create button. It will open the create static web app window. In that, as I said, the subscription that I am using, that is free. Then we have to select the resource group. So I will use this TechnoAarambh demo group, and then we have to create a static web app name. So let's create demo dash app. Okay, invalid character, demo app. So now if you see, the green tick is coming, so it's verified. So now in hosting plan, I'll use this as a free because I'm using the free subscription where you can see the details. And then I will, as I mentioned, I have created a front end or the Git repository. So I'll use the source as a Git, and my account is already added. But in your case, you have to create an account, and then it will automatically populate or fetch the data for your organization and the repositories. So I have logged in to my account. Then the organization data, I have created the organization, that is TechnoAarambh, and accordingly the repository will get fetched. So let's use this demo frontend, and then the default branch for this demo frontend is mapped. Then just go to the next. Then on the build details, if you see, it is React app is automatically populated, but you can change as per your setup. Then just click on review and create button. So it will review the details that we entered, and accordingly we need to create this static web app. So let's click on the create button. So it is initializing the deployment, and now deployment is submitting. So it will take some time for the deployment. So it moved to this deployment page. If you see, the deployment is in progress. So now deployment is done. So let's go to this resource. It will again open our static web apps overview page, and here you can see all the details like source group and everything. Then you can see the URL of our React app which is created. So let's, if you click on this, so it will open this page. So now our React app will be loaded in this, but currently we have not configured anything, so it will take some time because we set up as a GitHub action or GitHub repo. But if you see in the deployment history, click on this GitHub action, it will start the CI/CD pipeline. So it will take some time to complete the deployment, and once that is done, then this React app will getting loaded on the UI. So it will take some time, and you can see all the details on this, all the tabs. So now deployment is, I think, done. So let's again click on this URL. So it will show you our hello is printed on the UI as we mentioned. So we set up this in the React app. So now let's close this browser, and again we have to set up a backend application as a web app. So let's go to the home page and then click on the app service. We'll create a web app for this, and then let's create one more web app. Then it will again open this web app creation window, and then again we have to set up a resource group. I use the same one. Then we have to give a name that will do demo app dash backend. So it will be validating. No, okay, it's not present. So now demo app backend is be available. So if you see the green tick is present. So now let's scroll down a bit. Then we have to, I'll use this code in the stat. Then we'll use this Node 20 latest version. Then I'll use this for Windows, the operating system. Then we'll use the region. So I'll use this West Europe. You can select as per your need. Then if you see the plan price, there is free one. And then so everything is entered. So let's click on review and create button. So again it will validate the details that we entered, and then let's click on the create. It will initializing the deployment, and submitting the deployment. It will again take some time for the deployment. So it will open this deployment window page. So if you see, deployment is in progress. So now our deployment is done. So let's go to the resource. It will open again the overview page of our backend app and all the details you can see. Then now next step is we have to set up our backend app. So for that we have to go to this deployment center. So let's search here deployment center, and it will open the deployment center window. And in that as I said, I have already created a backend repository, that demo backend. So we need to map this to this web app as a backend. So again I need to go to the resource, and we'll use this GitHub. Then if you see my account, I have already logged in, so my login is by default added. But you can in your case, if you are not logged in, so just log in with the authentication, and then it will show you this with your name. Then let's select the organization, as I mentioned, for the static web app creation, the TechnoAarambh that I have already created. Then the repository name. So here we have to use demo backend. Then branch is main, and it's yes. So workflow options. What will what this radio will do? It will create a YML file in our project, and accordingly the CI/CD pipeline will be created. Then let's check everything is there. Then subscription is free and it is created. Now let's click on the save. So now it is deployment is setting up the deployment for GitHub. So now you can, once that is done, you can go to the logs. It will show this current status. It will take some time for the deployment, but you can see the progress which is coming here. And you can, if you want, you can go to this demo backend. In that you will see the actions. If you want to see the current status, then you can go to this repository, and then you will see the status that is pending, and you can just a second, you can click on this status, then you will see the details. So just click on the detail and you will see the status of the deployment. So now build is going on, then now build is done, then deployment is started. So you will see the step-by-step things on these logs. Now if you see the deployment is done, so let's go to the Azure portal again, then let's click on this demo backend overview page, and then if you click on this, it will open our backend app. So it's load, and in the backend we set up some static messages. So now you can see this hello world, welcome to this Node.js app is printed on the browser. So now our backend app is also running on Azure. So if you see this, we map this with this. If you can see this, we have mapped these things on the Node.js app. Now that we have completed a setup of our application on Azure, let's review what we have done so far and move on to the final step, that is end-to-end integration. So far we have created a React app as a static web app on Azure. Then we created a Node.js app, a web app as an Azure, and then we created a SQL database. Now it's time to integrate everything and test the end-to-end flow, that what happens when user log into the React app. It sends the request to the backend and fetches the data from the database. So in backend we created one server.js file where I have added some API endpoints, where I created some APIs, or for example some sample API, that is get API, and in database we created one table, that is demo, and in that demo table there are a couple of entries, then those entries will fetch and show it on the UI. So let's start. So now this is our backend app. In the server.js file, I have created this API, that customer info. I have given the API name, that is customer info, which will fetch the data, that is select star from demo, and send it back on the UI. So it will fetch the data. Once we hit this get API, it will fetch the data, and it will be printed on the UI. And from UI side, will use this with the help of this XYSpace API, will fetch the data, and then we'll map those data on the UI side. But before that, we have to add some database entries, or the connections or the configurations in this file, and accordingly we'll fetch. Here is the database info that we created on the Azure SQL database. That is our username, that is techno, then you need to add some password here, then the server name, and then the port number where the this database is running, and the database name, and so on. So, and on the front end side, so I have created one API. So with the help of this XYZ API, we'll fetch this API with this customer info as I show on the app. I have created the get API name called customer info, and then we'll fetch this data and we'll append those only the first name on the UI once user logged in. I have used the use effect hook, where what it will happens when the did mount, once the component is loaded, and it will print at the single time. So let's go to the Azure portal. But before that, you can see I have mapped this endpoint API. These details will get from the web app. So let's go to the Azure portal, and you can see this. These are the domain default domain. So let's copy this default domain and then go to here, and then just click on. So it will fetch the data. If you see uh, the records which is present on the demo table, that is returning. So we just need to map this API on the front end. So we have mapped with this API name. So let's go to this Azure portal, close this, then go to the home and open our static web app, and then just click on this UI. So it will open our React app, but you can see on the inspect, So let's inspect this, go to the network tab. Let's reload this app one more time and you'll see this customer API info is in pending state. Now you can see this printed on the console, and if you scroll down, I just map the first name of the entries. So you can see the first name, that is test, AM01, AM03, and AM05, and the third is null. So that's it. So now we have successfully completed the end-to-end integration of our three-tier applications. Let's quickly recap the process and understand how everything works together. The end-to-end integration of three-tier application. We integrated a front end and React, then back end as a Node.js, and then we created a Azure SQL database. Then a front end make a API call with the help of this fetch API and retrieves the first name and last name, and it will show on the UI. Then the database in the backend we created a API which can retrieve the data from the database and send it back to the front end. Now, this is all about the three-tier application. So this series demonstrate a complete development and deployment of a three-tier applications, from understanding the architecture to create and integrate all the layers, from deploying on Azure to ensure a working end-to-end flow. With this knowledge, you will have a solid understanding of building and deploying the three-tier application in real-world scenario. So that's all about the three-tier application. So thanks for watching. If you have any questions or feedback, feel free to leave a comment below and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to support the channel and stay updated with upcoming tutorials. See you in the next video. Until then, have a wonderful day. Thank you again for watching.